I'm David from Levika Photography, and today we are getting into color science because this is the first part in a series of videos about color calibration. And the one thing that screws everything up in the camera industry is color science. And there really isn't much science behind it. As a matter of fact, there's probably more science in Scientology than there is color science, or at least in the word. But anyway, let's just dive into this. So why does color science even exist, and what the hell is it? Every camera manufacturer, when they decide to release a camera, they want a certain look and feel to their images that kind of sets them apart from other cameras. So therefore they tweak their images, and they usually do it around skin tones. And so that's why we have differing flavors of color science. Nobody can just do neutral, which is what I prefer. So even though it's not actually documented, my firm belief is that color science is really just a sales technique to get people to buy camera equipment. And I've been seeing it pushed in camera stores for the last 21 years over my professional career. And basically, if you go back, say, 10, 15 years ago, let's go back to when the 5D came out. I distinctively remember salespeople telling people that were looking at Canon 5Ds, like me because I bought one, if you were converting from film and moving over to digital, that Canon 5Ds felt like Kodak portrait film. And that's what they would tell people. And I think they're actually right. It did feel like Kodak film. It kind of had that kind of reddish hue over it, you know, and it was comfortable. Now, Nikon, on the other hand, back in the day, salespeople would tell people that were looking into that it felt more like Agfa or Fujifilm as far as how the color goes, and it was slightly warmer and felt like you could do maybe a little bit more high key with it. So that was just another sales technique. And that was the whole reason why there's what they call color science behind these cameras, is just to be able to get you to buy into the system, because they think that you're going to take a better picture of a person with their camera. Even though I'd say 70% of my work doesn't involve people. It's objects or architecture or whatever. And the main thing about that 70% is I need it to be color accurate. And because of color science, I have to fight around it every single time. So who has the best color science out of all of them out there right now? In my personal opinion, I think it's Fuji. Even though I'm not shooting Fuji right now, Fuji kind of turned me off with their peanut butter algorithm that they used for noise reduction. So their skin tones looked like plastic to me, but when you ran their images through the Iridium transformer and got rid of that algorithm, then all of a sudden their images looked really good. And I think that Fuji has the most neutral color profile out of everybody out there. And I think they actually do a hell of a good job with their color. And the fact that they put film simulations on as an afterthought instead of saying, no, this is what you're going to get when you get the camera, I think that's definitely a bonus. Some people have a tendency to think that color science is in the sensor design, and it actually isn't. The one thing that is in the sensor design is dynamic range. And so if you actually look at the makeup of a sensor, this is normally what you see. You have red, green, and blue, and an extra green for an illumination pixel. And then you've got, like for an X-Trans, it's a little different. It has a little bit more green in it for a little extra illumination. But realistically, a sensor is a sensor. It doesn't really change that much. There isn't huge improvements between one sensor or the other, but where there are dramatic improvements is in dynamic range. So sensors that have more dynamic range produce color, not necessarily more accurately, but they produce more of it. And they produce more of that hue and more of that saturation. And they can do more of a tonal limit in between, but they don't necessarily do it accurately because they've got some bullshit color science thrown on top of it. Bigger sensors technically do better, but just to give you an idea, like up till this last week, I was shooting my Canon 5DS for shooting artwork, and then I decided to get rid of it simply because the A7R III, I found I was using that more and more because that had a wider color gamut as far as hue and saturation goes, and I was able to reproduce colors that I couldn't normally get with Canon more accurately. Now the other thing that we have to deal with is manufacturers have a tendency to over sharpen their images. So that creates another level of contrast on top of what's already there. So there's all these little things that you have to deal with. But we'll deal with all that stuff as we go through the different stages of calibration. I never thought I would say this, but Tony Northrup actually did a really cool video on the bullshit behind color science. And I really strongly suggest you guys go check this video out. The link is in the description. And basically what he did is he polled 1,500 people and showed them images from Canon, Sony, Nikon, and Fuji, and had them choose which color palette they liked best from each image. And then what happened was it basically started out with Sony, Fuji, Canon, and Nikon in that order of popularity as far as what they liked. Now, the funny thing is, once he threw the names of the brands on the photos, everything changed. And it became everybody liked Canon and Nikon, even though they didn't at first. So really, color science is just a bunch of bullshit. You know, Max Yuriev did this video comparing the video quality on auto settings between the Canon EOS R and the Sony Z7 and the A7 III, the Fuji X-T3, and the Blackmagic 4K. And so he did this really cool video where he kind of compares all of these camera systems side by side. But the thing that I liked about this is that it showed you how different the color looks between videos. So the link is in the description. I highly suggest you guys check that out. So anyway, those are some of the issues that we have to overcome with color science. So our goal is to get to a very neutral color palette. So I'm going to show you basically how to get this done. And the next video is going to be on color calibration, so stay tuned for that one. Anyway, I hope you guys like this video. Give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment. Otherwise, we'll talk to you guys later. See ya.